Hi, my name is Antonis and I'm the painter in this video. I hope you are healthy and creative, spending time in your studio. And today you will see me painting the face of a man. And in order to do this, I'm using both acrylic paints and on the early stages of the painting. And later on, I'll switch to oil painting, a practice that is commonly used by the master painters of the past. Of course, they didn't use acrylics, but some kind of tempera, either egg tempera or some other kind of tempera. So here, in order to begin painting this, I will, and since I'm going to use acrylics on the early stages, I have to prepare my panel with an acrylic gesso, and you can find details how I'm doing this on some other videos of mine. And um, after I've prepared my panel, I will transfer the drawing and with an acrylic color like black and white, I'll do some underpainting uh, as you can already see here on this stage. So after I've done some underpainting with black and white in this case, then I will proceed with you painting with acrylics the shadows and the lights on the face of this portrait. So this will help me gain some time. I will not have to wait for days. If I used oil, I would have to wait days for the pigments to dry. Here, the acrylic color or the tempera will dry instantly and will allow me to work these early stages of the painting more quickly and without having to wait the pigments to dry. So at this point, you see that I have worked on my background a little bit, and I have painted my underpainting with black and white, of course, as I said, with acrylics, and now I'm proceeding with painting in color the shadows of the face of this man, and now the some lights on some shapes of lights on his face. By doing this with tempera, I'm not very. I know that later on I will proceed with adding oil and I will get smoother transitions. So here I just want to create this sense of volume on his face and to try to find the right shapes of light on his face, along with doing some transition with between the light and shadow with this acrylic color. So you see that I'm using both transparent colors and more dense in order um, to create this difference in value that I need. And let me explain a little bit the colors that I've used so far. So for the underpainting, I've just used some gray in various tones. And for the colored shadows on his face, I've used a variation of some green brownish colors along with some black. I don't want to get into much details about the specific colors that I use because I think sometimes students are more confused by having to use all these tubes and colors in their palette. Instead, I want I don't have either a specific recipe. I just for the shadows wanted to create colors that are uh, green brownish, dark green brownish, that will make sense and that will be as dark as I would like them to be. So after I paint these shadows on the underpainting, Then, as you see, I'm proceeding with painting these shapes of light, and for this I'm using a warm color that consists of some cadmium yellow, a little bit of yellow ochre, some titanium white, just something yellowish, ochre-like color that will give me some first sense of the skin color. Again, it can be more pinkish, it can be more, yellowish, like here. It doesn't really matter. I just want to create a sense of first volume and the shapes of light. And then you see that I'm doing some blending. This blending comes from mixing colors of light and mixing colors of shadow on my palette, and then doing this basic blending. You see that I'm using my brush in a way that is not very, I'm tapping the brush on my painting, and already you see that there is a sense, an idea of where this portrait goes and where it will go. Now I'm using a brush that is relatively soft. It's a Kolinsky brush, best for ectempera or water-based colors. And now, after I've done some this basic work on acrylics, now I'm ready to switch to painting with oils. I'm ready, I don't have to wait any days. So what I'm doing here is preparing some colors on my palette that correspond to the area that I want to paint. Here I want to start by painting with a color that is an in-between color between the light and shadow. You see that it's this ochre greenish brownish color, and I will just place this color on the areas between the light and shadow. I have to remember that the the layer of color underneath is dry and it's not oil. By the end of this portrait, I want everything to be covered in oil color. And as you see, I'm placing this in the areas between the light and the shadow that I want to later on blend. Yeah, that I want them to be blended later on. So think of this stage as just placing a color that is not blended yet, that it will be blended in a little bit, and think that right next to this color I can add a color that is darker and closer to the shadows of this face, and then I will add other color that is brighter and more close to the light parts. Hopefully the video explains better what I'm doing than me. By doing this, I'm also trying to correct these shapes, to expand a little bit the shapes of light that I didn't earlier, or by adding darker colors to shrink a little bit these shapes. I will have to. It's the best way to really adjust these shapes and to find the correct way of transitioning between light and shadow. I don't care that you see there is some value difference between the light and the shadowy part, especially on the cheek and on the chin, etc. I don't care about this because, as you will see in a little bit, I will add a color that is darker, and I will further blend this um, this contrast. Another thing is that you really have to understand and imagine how the portrait will evolve, and that's why you don't have to care if the portrait at this point looks horrible. It doesn't really matter. Understanding the future, let's say, of the portrait, it's something that requires experience, and that's why it's okay to spend time in the studio practicing, even if the result is not perfect at the beginning, or if you have to destroy portraits. This is so natural because of course we gain experience, and even if the portrait is destroyed, at least we have gained some experience on the materials, on how the brush behaves, how the color reacts to each other, blending mastery, etc. So really, it's not matter of producing a masterpiece by the end, but it's more a matter of gaining experience and becoming really, more familiar with the materials and the process. So here you see that I've prepared the color that is slightly darker than the previous one, and I will place this color right next. Of course, I will have to observe my model or my reference photo, and I will have to really observe the way the light behaves, let's say, on the face, and the adventure of the light on the face, how abruptly or how smoothly a transition has to be painted. It's very, very important. This will give me the sense of the material that I'm painting, a sense of I will if I have to paint a metal sphere, for example, I will have to use more abrupt, more hard transitions. If the sphere was made of leather, I would have to use more soft transitions. If the sphere was made by cotton, then the reflections on it could be completely different. So the handling of the transition and observing the way the transition and the reflections that I will have to paint is, of course, very, very crucial in order to give the sense, the illusion of the material that I will have to paint. Now, as I'm doing this process, I will have to really understand what I'm doing. I will have to be concentrated and completely into the painting. It's not a process that can um, that my brain, my thoughts can drift away. It's something, it's a process that requires my active concentration and to actively ask questions while I'm painting, how this color will affect the final result, and really to know what I'm doing. It's really, really important. Now see how I'm moving towards the shadow, adding more shadowy colors on some areas. Again, I know that later on I will do the blending, and as you see now, I have started doing this, and see how directly this creates this smooth, nice, beautiful sense. Of course, this is something that I could never be able to do by just painting with acrylics. This requires, of course, oil as a medium. Now, as you see, I'm doing this blending and I'm using a dry brush. This brush is slightly harder than the previous Kolinsky brush that I used. and I instantly, when I'm painting with oils, it's very rare to use Kolinsky brush, as it's very soft. But sometimes when the oil is almost dry, or I want to spread thin layers of oil, I will use a very soft brush like a Kolinsky. Here in this case, I will, as you see, I'm using a harder brush. It's not very hard. It's an acrylic brush. It can be used for oil painting, and with this, I'm just spreading the color and I'm tapping the color a little bit. And when the brush is loaded with the color, as I'm doing this process, I will wipe the excess color from its hairs on a piece of cloth. This process really reminds me of, or I assume that it's very similar to doing, makeup for aesthetic reasons, for on the face. I imagine that makeup artists do something very similar like this. And of course, it's not the only way to paint. This is just one way to paint and produce very smooth transitions. Now, when I'm doing this, it's very important, and you will see this on the video, that I'm starting from the darker areas, and I will try to blend firstly all the darker areas of the face, and I don't care at this point about what's happening in the central areas of the shapes of light. I will do this blending later. At this early stage of the blending, I only care to do a good job on the areas on the darker areas. So I only care to blend the color that I've added, that I've placed, and do a very smooth, very convincing transition between the at the beginning, let's say, of the shapes of the light towards the shadow. Hopefully, what I'm explaining here makes sense. I try to explain this process as best as I can, and hopefully, this video will inspire you and help you somehow to your journey in painting, and you know you can find more videos of mine on my page on Patreon. There I have videos on egg tempera, on oil painting, the sfumato technique, and much more. Feel free to visit and explore the page there. I want to thank all my supporters on Patreon for their huge support. It's something that really helps me and allows me to be in the studio more. Also, I want to thank you for your beautiful comments here on YouTube, and for your amazing presence. It's always nice to get messages of how helpful these videos have been for you. Sometimes I am not sure if the way I explain things is really helpful, but as I said earlier, hopefully the video itself is more explanatory than what I'm saying. So you see here how I'm doing this blending, and of course you see that the central brighter part of the lights is still acrylic. The only thing that is oil here is these transitioning colors between light and shadow. Now, remember that the brushes that I'm using is not something fancy or something very expensive. It's like very commonly found brushes, and you see how I somehow abuse them in this process. I wipe them hardly on my piece of cloth, and sometimes if I want, like a broader brush, I will push the hairs to open a little bit. I'm not gentle on, on my brushes, especially when I'm doing this. And remember that neither the brushes nor the color itself is something very fancy. I'm using professional oil colors, of course, but not something that is, especially expensive or something like that. Now, let me also say at this point that when I'm switching to oil as my medium, I will thin the color down with turpentine oil, and just that at this point, while I'm doing these transitions, I don't add any extra linseed oil or anything like that. I will just use the color as it comes from the tube, and I will thin it down if I need to with a little bit turpentine oil. So I go back and forth on this process until I have until I have painted some basic transition everywhere, and this is, as I said, an active process. I have to use my eyes, and the process is I add the color where I need to add, and then I will blend the color. This can happen for some time. After a little bit, the underneath layers are wet, and they cannot accept any more color. They will become muddy, so I will have to wait for some days for these layers to dry. And as you see here, I've done this already, and now I'm proceeding with painting a second layer of light, and I'm doing exactly the same thing as I did earlier. Here I will add some color that consists of titanium white, a little bit of alizarin red, a little bit of cadmium red, and a little bit of cadmium yellow. It doesn't really matter. I want a color that is brighter and lighter in tone, and also I want this color to be slightly more pinkish, not as yellowy. And here I will add these, let's say, shapes of light. I will place the color on the face, and then I will proceed with proceed with doing some blending. It's nice to not have this is very hard though, to not have expectations, or to not doubt about the process. Doubting the process is helpful, because it can lead us to very beautiful results. It can lead a painter to take some risks and really experiment a little bit. Doubting is something that can be helpful, but too much doubting about what we do is not constructive. It's not always great. So I don't have much expectations. I often want to paint as the old masters and to create visually rich paintings, and really this has always been a goal of mine when I'm painting, to not just paint a face, but to paint in a way that will satisfy other painters. Yeah? It's important somehow to visually create something rich, but at the same time, I want to not have so many expectations somehow, that in a way that I will feel not creative, and in a way that it will kill my joy of painting. So proceed the process like that. and really enjoy the process of adding color and then placing the color where it needs and then blending the color and see what can happen. Please let me know if this is something that has helped you. Let me know in the comments, and yeah. So you see how little by little the face of this man comes to be, you know, a nice painting. Recently, I've visited the School of Fine Arts in Athens, where I used to study, and the news there is that very few people paint. It's really strange that a school of fine arts doesn't teach much painting. But anyway, this is another story, another video. Um, in my opinion, painting today is, as hot as it has always been. People paint, and I'm saying this because I want to stress the fact that these videos are not just, I'm doing these studies and I'm trying to improve my painting and teach whatever I can learn from the old masters here online. But the process is not just to make a study or to copy, but to really use these techniques, these methods in contemporary painting. I think this has a lot of this way of painting can be applied in modern contemporary painting. And we can have results that can be extremely interesting. We often see painters today that paint in a more flat, let's say a more uninspired way, a way that doesn't much satisfy the eye. Of course, we have amazing painters who know how to paint, and they use various methods to approach their technique, their language. But we often see painters that really don't know how to paint, and this can affect their message. This can affect what they want to give to the audience. So my goal here is to really understand the way old masters used to paint, and to bring this language into today's works of art, and to really help those of you who can use this way of painting in order to give the audience your vision and your way of seeing the world through the brushes and the colors. So as you see, little by little, I am building this face. I think in this video you can see the process of placing the color and then tapping the color, moving the color here and there, manipulating the color, and uh, this for the most part this is the process. You remember that we have to always be concentrated in what we do. Here you see that I'm back to using a softer brush. Remember that with the brushes we have to constantly evaluate them, how they feel in our hand, and to evaluate if they obey our commands. It's a constant, evaluation, let's say, because yeah, many people struggle with the question, what kind of brushes should I use? It's a matter of experience, a matter of testing, experimenting a little bit. As I said earlier, I started saying that we constantly, as we paint, have to ask questions like how this color will affect the painting, the process that I'm doing. If this color that I'm doing is bright enough, how it will be blended if the underneath layer is still wet. Of course, I don't talk now about drawing questions. I assume that we have solved the drawing issues before proceeding with painting in color. That's another story. And but the questions that we have to ask while we're painting have to be constant and have to be crucial. Like what is the shape of this light, of this shadow? Should I expand this shape, or should I shrink this shape of light? Is this blending beautiful? Should I make the blending better by adding some darker color or some lighter color? Things like that. So you see that now I'm on the final stages of painting this face. It took me a couple of more than a couple of days. I had to wait 2 times for the portrait to dry. And as you see, it's almost it's almost done. I like when some portraits are there is a strong contrast like this here. We have a strong contrast between light and shadow. This is something that creates an atmosphere, creates something. And of course, as we are on the process of painting and understanding the materials, as I say, the result, it's okay if it has some issues, if it's not perfect. We are not, we try to be the masters, but we are not. Recently, I visited the National Gallery in London, and really I was amazed by seeing in person all these masterpieces. It was really, really beautiful. And one of the conclusions that every time I see these paintings, I am in shock, really. And every time I derive different conclusions according to the phase in my life that I am in. This time I realized that really they used pigments, they used color, and not something amazing, magic substance that made these paintings look so fantastic. So they played with their colors, their pigments, and this is what we try to do as well. Here you see me placing these final touches. I will make things a little bit more rosier, but always with the same idea, placing the color, placing the correct color to the correct area according to the value I want. And after I place this color, I will do the blending. It's really simple if you think about it, but also it can be very, very complicated and it requires a lot of work. Please visit my page on patreon.com if you feel like it. Be a part in that page and support me and this channel. It's really something that I appreciate. Anyway, hopefully this video was of some help to you, and Hopefully it will inspire you to be in the studio, enjoy your this process in your studio, and create something really, really beautiful. Thank you so much. Be healthy and creative, and I will see you soon with another video. Bye.